Getting started with Flask. You're probably wondering where our Python knowledge comes in. As it turns out, working with the back end provides more flexibility than working with the front end. This allows us to use whatever programming language we are comfortable with. Web developers also use web frameworks. A web framework is a library of codes that simplify web development. Frameworks make it easier to reuse code. See, developers have been creating web applications and programming sites over the past 20 years or so. There are common patterns that have already been noted by web developers over the years. For this course, we'll be using the web framework Flask. Flask is a micro-framework, which means that as far as frameworks go, it's quite minimalistic. While it can also be used to create complex web apps, it lacks certain functionalities that full-stack frameworks have. That means that it's perfect for someone designing their first web app. We'll be making a simple Hello World project, just like in the beginner's course. This time, however, it will be with the Flask app. Let's go! Let's create a new project in our PyCharm. Click the File tab and choose New Project. This would lead to this dialog box. Don't forget to write the name of the project at the end of the file path. We named our project app_project, but you can name it whatever you want. Once the project has been created, create a new Python file. Click the Terminal tab, then type pip install Flask. Click Enter. Next, let's set up an environment variable. This will allow Flask to know which file to look for when it wants to run. Let's instantiate the class. First, let's import the Flask module and get the Flask class. The first letter of Flask should be capitalized for the class, while it should be lowercase for the module. Then we create an instance, saving the application object in a variable called app. Name references the name of the current module that you're working in, which is app.py. When we visit a URL, a request is made to the web server. The request is then processed and a response is returned to the browser. Routing is a process which helps us handle various requests, as they will be directed to different endpoints. Let's build a route. First, we create our endpoint. Then we define a view function. The view function contains the code for processing the request and generating a response. In this case, we'll name our view function home. Now let's go back to the terminal and type Flask run. Since you set the environment variable to your project's file name, Flask run will know what to run. You can click the link on the terminal, or type the URL into your browser. That leads you to this page. In Python, we use decorators to add functionality to one or more functions. Let's talk about the route decorator. Here, using route lets us assign URLs in our app to functions. In our code, decorators tell our app that whenever someone visits our app, the route executes the home function. Earlier, we built a route using this syntax. Let's build another route. We can access this page by adding /animal on our URL. Now, we've only been using plain text. We can also use HTML. Go to your terminal. Then press Ctrl+C to close the server. We can now edit our code. Type Flask run on the terminal, then click the link. So you've probably noticed that whenever we make a minor change, we have to close the server. We can change this by going to the terminal and pressing Ctrl+C. Then, let's type set flask_debug equals 1. Flash and debug are in all caps. Type Flask run on the terminal again. Now we don't need to keep closing our server. All we need is to run our Python file. To add more content to our site, we can use triple quotes. This can contain multi-line quotes. Let's go to our animals page. If we want to bind multiple routes to the same view function, we simply add another route decorator. Typing the original URL and the URL with the /home leads to the same web page. And that's all for this tutorial. In this video, we learned about web frameworks, installing Flask, importing the Flask class, building routes,